The first shadow fell over Nova Alexandria at the exact moment the morning market opened. She would think about that later. Fleet Marshal Alara Trent would turn it over in her mind during the long months that followed, the specific cruelty of the timing, the way a city can be completely alive in one breath and then simply not in the next. Vendors arranging fruit. Children on their way to school. The smell of coffee and engine grease and a morning that had no idea what was coming. Then the Kalanath warships covered the sky. No alarm. No warning transmission. No window of negotiation. Dark. The broadcast screens came on everywhere, simultaneously, across every channel in the galaxy, and Warlord Kale's face filled all of them. He was calm. That was the part Alara could never fully process afterward, not the scale of what he did, but the specific quality of his stillness while he did it. The calm of a man who has decided that no answer is coming. Communications were jammed across the entire Nova Alexandria system. Alara had no option but to watch from the command center on Terra Prime. For light years away, her hands flat on the console, her senior staff arranged in a half-circle behind her, none of them speaking. Kale spoke no military language. He issued no formal declaration of war. He gave a demonstration. After today, he said, the galaxy will understand what humans are. Governor Elias Vance attempted a personal channel transmission in those final minutes, not to Alara, not to Galactic Apex Command, but directly to Kale himself, or to any Kalanath officer who might be listening. Alara received a fragment of it through the static. Vance's voice had a quality she had never heard from him before, a specific kind of steadiness that men develop when they know the next breath might be their last, and they have decided to use it anyway. I'm asking you to consider. There are civilians here, children. These people have nothing to do with any. The transmission ended. It didn't cut to static. It simply stopped. Alara turned to the Galactic Apex Command channel and requested immediate intervention. When that produced a form acknowledgement, she demanded. When the demand produced a longer form acknowledgement, she said things that a fleet marshal is never supposed to say, the kind of words that mean she was placing her entire career on the table in front of people who had the authority to end it. Galactic Apex responded with 17 words. This matter constitutes a regional dispute. Our mandate does not extend to internal conflict intervention. 27 million people. One city. 3 hours. She didn't cry. She wanted to. She was aware of wanting to, the way you're aware of a door that won't open. You can feel it, you can push against it, but the mechanism has failed. Something was too large to process, and her body had apparently decided that processing had to come before grief, and the processing wasn't finishing. She remembered thinking very clearly that she needed to file a formal protest with Galactic Apex before the end of her shift. She never filed it. Stay with this, because what came next is the part that the galaxy still has not fully reckoned with. The broadcast screens that had shown the massacre of Nova Alexandria were still running. Kalanath had left them on deliberately. A reminder, a monument to their own certainty. They would run for exactly 1 more year. What Warlord Kale did at Nova Alexandria had no strategic military logic. It was not a tactical objective. There was no resource to capture, no position to hold, no enemy force to neutralize. It was a message transmitted on every frequency to every species watching, and the message was, look at what these people are. Look at how easily they break. He made one assumption, a reasonable one by the standards of every species he had ever encountered before. He assumed that fear produces submission. That was his first mistake. There is something that happens to a population after a collective atrocity that military strategists have documented across dozens of species and hundreds of conflicts, though they rarely discuss it in the same breath as the atrocity itself. A group that survives a massacre does not typically fragment, compresses. The psychological literature describes it as traumatic coalescence. Individual grief collapses inward, grief becomes fuel, and fuel seeks a single point of ignition. The silence that follows is not the silence of defeat. It is the silence of a species doing the most dangerous thing any species can do, deciding. On Terra Prime, Alara Trent gathered her generals. She gave no speech. She issued no public statement. She made no threat, filed no formal declaration, sent no warning to Kale or to Galactic Apex or to anyone. She said one word, quiet. The galaxy watched and concluded that humanity had broken. Galactic Apex issued 3 formal statements of condolence and closed the file. Kalanath celebrated. Several neutral species sent diplomatic notes of sympathy and quietly updated their own threat assessments of humanity downward. Every single one of them made the same mistake. For 1 full year, every factory, every shipyard, every research installation, every laboratory on every human-controlled planet ran at 100% capacity, 24 hours a day, and none of it appeared on any public registry. The Obsidian Fleet, someone named it, nobody remembered who, and the name spread the way fire spreads through dry grass, from shipyard to barracks, from barracks to command room, in whispers that never reached the open channels Kalanath was monitoring. Obsidian. Black, dense, and sharp enough to cut before you feel the blade. Alara remembered her daughter's birthday falling in the 7th month. She sent a message. 3 words, soon. Promise. Her daughter didn't ask what she meant. Human children absorb context early when the environment teaches them. That message was the only personal communication Alara sent to anyone outside of operational channels for the entirety of that year. And the fact that this did not bother her at the time was something that would bother her considerably later. Galactic Apex did nothing for 12 months. That was their mistake. The second one. There would not be a third because there would not be time for a third. 365 days. Then the Obsidian Fleet lit its engines for the first time. Alara remembered that morning with the kind of clarity that only comes when the brain understands, even before the conscious mind catches up, that this is a moment it will carry forever. The command bridge was silent, but it was not the silence of fear or hesitation. It was the silence of 4,000 warships, their crews at their stations, every system online, every weapon charged, every navigation coordinate locked, all of them waiting for a single word from a single person who had spent 1 year and 27 million lives arriving at this exact moment. Fleet Marshal, the navigation officer said quietly, all ships report ready. Alara looked at the broadcast screen. Still running. Still showing the loop of footage that Kalanath had left on as a monument to their certainty. She looked at it for 3 seconds. Then she looked away and she did not look at it again because after today it would show something different, and she already knew what that was going to be, and she had already decided she felt nothing about it. Nothing that she was prepared to name anyway. Go, she said. The Obsidian Fleet jumped. Kalanath had 17 military installations across 6 systems. The Obsidian Fleet took 11 minutes to reach the first one. There was no hail, no demand for surrender, no formal declaration transmitted on open channels. Alara had thought carefully about whether to offer one, had sat with the question for approximately 4 seconds, and had decided that Warlord Kale had already established the protocol for this engagement 14 months ago over Nova Alexandria. She was simply following precedent. The first Kalanath base did not have time to raise its shields. Gone. The second and third fell within the same breath, 2 simultaneous strikes that the Kalanath defensive network couldn't process because it had been designed to handle threats arriving from one direction at a time. The Obsidian Fleet didn't arrive from one direction. It arrived from everywhere, the same geometry Kale had used over Nova Alexandria, the same closing fist, except this fist had been built by people who had spent a year with nothing else to think about. Alara watched the tactical display from her command chair. She felt something she could not name. Not satisfaction exactly. Not relief. Something colder and more fundamental than either of those. Something that had no word in any language she knew, which she found mildly interesting from a clinical standpoint and immediately filed away to think about never. The primary Kalanath fleet scrambled from their fortress at Kalan Prime. They were expecting a battle. What they encountered was a different category of event entirely. There is a principle that military theorists across the galaxy have documented but rarely applied with this degree of precision. A force that has spent 12 months building toward a single moment of violence, with no distraction, no negotiation, no relief valve of smaller engagements, does not fight the way conventional forces fight. It does not pace itself. It does not preserve options. It has already decided, at every level from the commanding officer to the newest crew member, that there is exactly one acceptable outcome, and every calculation, every maneuver, every weapons release is filtered through that single lens. The Kalanath fleet outnumbered the Obsidian fleet in experience and legacy hardware. It did not matter. You cannot outmaneuver a force that has already accepted every possible cost. The primary Kalanath fleet was gone in 43 minutes. Galactic Apex Intervention Forces arrived at the edge of the system 17 minutes after that, precisely on schedule, precisely too late to effect the first engagement, and precisely in time to watch the ground assault on Kalan Prime begin. Commodore Yeth of Galactic Apex hailed Ilara's command ship on an open channel. Fleet Marshal Trent. His secondary vocal membrane was vibrating at a frequency that suggested his species' equivalent of controlled alarm, a tight, involuntary oscillation that he almost certainly could not stop. You are ordered to cease all offensive operations immediately. You are in violation of 17 Galactic Apex statutes. Stand down. Ilara looked at the hail notification for a moment. She thought about the 17 words Galactic Apex had sent her 14 months ago. This matter constitutes a regional dispute. Our mandate does not extend to internal conflict intervention. Commodore, she said, I'm going to ask you to consider something. You have 43 warships. I have 4,000. Nova Alexandria had 27 million people, and Galactic Apex had a mandate that didn't extend to helping them. She paused. One breath. I suggest you decide very quickly whether your current mandate extends to stopping me, and what that decision will cost you. The Galactic Apex fleet did not move. She hadn't expected them to. The ground assault on Kalan Prime took 6 hours. Warlord Kale was found in a sublevel command chamber, alone, his personal guard either dead or gone. He had clearly been preparing a transmission, some final broadcast, some last performance of certainty for a galaxy that was no longer watching him. The broadcast screen in his chamber was active and ready. He hadn't gotten to use it. Ilara received confirmation of his capture and did not respond for 11 seconds. She was looking at the tactical display. She was also thinking, irrelevantly, that the coffee in her command chair's integrated dispenser had been cold for approximately 3 hours, and she had not noticed until this exact moment. Then she gave the order for the Void Spore. She had written the authorization 6 months earlier on a Tuesday, between a supply requisition review and a navigation calibration report. She had signed her name, filed it under provisional orders, and had not looked at it again. She looked at it now on the confirmation screen, her own signature in the bottom corner, and she noted, with the detached precision of someone observing a stranger, that her handwriting was completely steady. The Void Spore was not a weapon in any conventional sense. It did not destroy infrastructure. It did not target military assets. It was a biological agent, classified at the highest level of prohibition under all 17 of the Galactic Apex statutes Commodore Yeth had just cited, designed for one specific purpose that its designers had understood with complete clarity when they built it. Extinction. It moved through Kalanath biology with a specificity that took 3 generations of human researchers 12 years to engineer, targeting genetic markers unique to the species, replicating faster than any immune response could track. By the time a population knew what was happening, the window for intervention had already closed. The Kalanath planets would not be destroyed. The infrastructure would remain. The cities would stand. Every building, every archive, every monument to everything the Kalanath had ever built or believed or become would remain perfectly intact. Empty. The broadcast screens across the galaxy carried it live. Not because Ilara had planned for that. Because Kalanath had left their own broadcast infrastructure running for 14 months as a monument to their certainty, and that infrastructure was still active, still transmitting, and now it showed something different than it had been built to show. The same screens. Different images. Ilara watched for 40 seconds. Then she turned away from the display and looked at the star field through the forward viewport, and she thought about Nova Alexandria's morning market, the fruit vendors and the coffee smell and the children who had been walking to school, and she thought about her daughter's face, which she had not seen in 14 months, and she thought about the specific word baka, survival, and what it costs, and whether the cost has a ceiling, and whether she would recognize the ceiling if she reached. She did not have an answer. She wasn't sure she was still the kind of person who needed one. The galaxy did not celebrate what humanity had done. It did not condemn it either, not loudly, not in any forum that carried consequences. Galactic Apex issued a formal censure that contained, if you read it carefully, the unmistakable syntax of an institution that was also afraid. Neutral species updated their threat assessments quietly, in closed sessions, in language that did not appear in any public record. Humanity had wanted the galaxy to understand what they were capable of. They hadn't needed to say a word. The broadcast screens went dark at last, 14 months after Nova Alexandria, and in the silence that followed, every species that had watched understood something they would carry for a very long time. That the most dangerous moment with any predator is not when it snarls. It is the long quiet before, the year of stillness, the patience that looks exactly like defeat until the exact second it doesn't. Nova Alexandria's morning market had smelled like coffee and engine grease and a day that didn't know what was coming. The galaxy would not make that mistake again.